Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Wellness Wednesday. Thank you guys all for joining me, and I hope you are ready to dive in. We have a great topic to talk about tonight, and that is investing. Before we get started, let's go ahead and open up in prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Dear Lord, be with us this evening as we have our topic. Help our conversation tonight to help enrich our knowledge of our finances so that we can live according to your will in all that we do. Guide us in this and all things, God, that we live to honor you, to glorify you, and in thanksgiving of all the gifts you've given us. I pray all this in Jesus Christ's holy name. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right, so tonight we're going to follow up on our last Facebook event. And for those of you who only usually look at our Wednesday events, we do have a Team Up Tuesday event. And at that one, we went into investing basics, so the very basics of what is investing. And in that, we talked about is paying off our debts and setting goals before you get ready to invest. You need to be ready for it, and you need to know why you're investing. We talked a little bit about stock. We talked about stock being ownership in a company, which sometimes is accompanied with some voting rights. One of the other things that we talked about is when do you invest? So if you need your funds within the next 5 years, it's recommended that you maybe save that in a savings account. That way, those funds are actually there when you need it. The stock market does inherently has ups and downs that come along with it. And by waiting, by putting that in an investment vehicle, if you need it within that 5 years, you may not have time to weather some of those natural ups and downs. So a savings account for less than 5 years, and then go ahead and invest it if it's over 5 years. We talked a little bit about mutual funds. Mutual funds, they do include both stocks, or not both, but all three. They include stocks, bonds, and cash. What exactly that balance is really going to be based on your investment choice, based on your risk, your timeline, and your goal. And those are some things we will be talking about this evening: risk, timeline, and goal. And then I'm not sure if we touched on this last time, but some different ways the mutual funds can be purchased within investment vehicles. And those are the vehicles we'll talk about this evening. But you can purchase mutual funds. You can also purchase them as exchange traded funds, which means those mutual funds are actually traded like stock. And then you can also have a mutual fund that is an index fund. And what that says is, say you had a mutual fund that was the S&P 500 index. That would say the mutual funds within that vehicle are going to be companies. It's going to have stocks and from those companies that are held, they're a part of the S&P 500. So if a company drops out of the S&P 500, they're going to drop out of your portfolio. So that's how the index funds work. And then another investment vehicle, and we're not going to spend too much time talking on this. We did talk about this last time, is going to be bonds. Bonds are a way that you can have ownership in a company. And what you do is you basically say, I'm going to lend you some money. I'm going to let you borrow this and use it for what you need to do with it. In exchange, you get paid interest. You earn an income, or you make your profit based on a return that they give you at the end of that time frame. And so that's what a bond is. It gives you some money basically that you're lending. Think about it like when you buy a home and you borrow money from the bank and you pay them back with interest. Well, a bond is kind of the same way. You're going to borrow money. Company says, hey, I need to borrow some money for a project. You're lending them that money, and then they're going to pay it back to you with interest. So that's kind of a recap of what we talked about last night. And so tonight, what I'd really like to do is kind of put a wrap and kind of take all of that and kind of say, okay, those are some basics about investing. And so now let's do approaching it is like, how do I do it? So I'm getting ready to invest. I think I want to invest. I've got a time frame of more than 5 years. What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? How do I get started? And what are some things that I need to consider? And again, this is specifically if you're looking for investments. Now, I will say that one of the things you need to consider is, what is your goal? Are you investing as a form of protection? Not as a protection of income, but we have insurance, and insurance is something that we use as a method of protection. We have insurance on our car in case we get into an accident. We have insurance on our home, and that's going to protect our home. So make sure that if the goal is more protection, make sure that you're not shortchanging. And if it needs to be insurance that you're in, purchase insurance. If you have insurance, I mean, definitely investments are a great way to kind of add to that insurance, because we have deductibles and all that kind of stuff that would be covered. So just make sure that when you go to invest, it's investing that you're looking to do and not something that should be covered by insurance. So we're investing for the future. We need some kind of funds in the future. And one of the first starting places is you've got your budget, you've determined I have some money and I'm ready to invest. And there's two critical starting places that you're going to want to be at. And one of them is going to be, what is your goal? Finding out what that goal is and what you're trying to save for will determine how you invest. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute when we talk about some different ways to invest for different goals. But that's one of the things to consider, is going to be, what is my goal? And that's going to have a big determination. It's going to determine not just, well, I need my funds in 10 years or I need them in 20 years, but it's going to say, how do you want them invest? So that's also going to have a bearing on that. The other thing that you need to look at is your risk tolerance. So your risk tolerance is going to be your ability to withstand the ups and downs in the market. The market has natural ups and downs with it. If you pay attention to it at all, if you've been buying a home or mortgage, with the mortgage interest rates, or paying attention to any of that lately, you've seen it's just a part of our lifestyle. Inflation goes up, that has an impact on the stock market. Everything has an impact. If a world event happens and people get afraid, they tend to pull their money out of the stock market. They tend to react emotionally. So when you measure your risk, one of the things you're measuring is that emotional feeling that you have with your investment. And this is really important, because we want to invest to meet our goal. We don't want this to be something that's going to be such a focus on our head that it distracts us from things. We don't want it to be such a focus that I'm worried, is my investment going to hold up? Is it going to be what I want it to be in the future? So knowing your risk tolerance is a way to measure that. So after the show, I will include in the show notes on our Facebook channel, I will add a risk tolerance questionnaire. So feel free to click on the link and go ahead and take that risk tolerance questionnaire and see what your measure is. Now, if you're married, both of you need to take this questionnaire, because your risk tolerance could possibly be different. And that's okay. My husband and I, we have different risk tolerances. So my investments for my retirement, they invested in my risk tolerance, and his are invested for his. So your risk tolerance is going to say, when I go to bed at night, am I worried about the ups and downs of the market? Am I worried that my retirement fund is going to be what I want it to be when I retire? And if you're very risk averse, so that means that you're really concerned about this, then you're going to want to invest in a little bit more conservative investment vehicles. So more conservative mutual funds, IRAs, and 401ks. However, if you're like, you know what, I'm good, I understand the market goes up, the market goes down, it does not affect me, I don't need my money for 10, 20 years, you might be just growth or a little more aggressive an investor, and that's okay. Again, the stock market's going to go up. So the average that the stock market goes is it has an average earning of 10% before inflation. So if it earns 10% and the inflation is 2%, you should be making 8%, which is not a bad return on your money. Again, you need to leave it in there over the long term. So know what your goal is and take a risk tolerance questionnaire to see how you are going to handle some of these ups and downs in the market. So where do you go and where do you invest? So if you're looking to invest in education, two really good sources are going to be 529s and Coverdell accounts. And what they do is they're going to invest in mutual funds now and ESAs. So Coverdell ESAs, and 529s are going to be in mutual funds, and Coverdells, you can have stocks in there as well. And you are investing these specifically for education. So when you have an investment vehicle that is geared for a specific reason, it is going to have tax advantages for that specific goal. For example, if you invest in a 529 or a Coverdale, then you are going to have to pay no interest if you use it for education on the growth in that money. So you have a little child, you put some money away for their college, but that grows, and at 18 they go off to college, and all the growth in that fund is tax free as long as you use it on education. Same thing with a Coverdale. Now, both have a little bit of differences in it. The Coverdale, you can use it a little bit earlier, and they have adapted some of the 529 funds as well so that you can use that a little bit before college. You can also use it for things like housing. You can use it for computers if the college requires it. And most colleges require some kind of electronic computers. Just make sure it's something that your child needs or yourself needs for your education, and you're able to pull it out. Now, with all of these investment vehicles, if you pull it out for a reason that is not, so if you have, like, for example, if you have an education fund and you pull it out and use it for retirement or to buy a home or just to have funds, you will have to pay taxes, and you will also have to pay a penalty. The IRS says, you told us this was for education, and we promised to give you a tax break for that. So they're going to penalize you for using an education vehicle and not actually using the funds for education. Now, there is a way around that. You can usually pass down these accounts to somebody else, retirement accounts that you do not use. They become part of your estate, and they can be passed on to your heir. A lot of the education accounts, the 529s, you can change the beneficiary on those. So if you don't need it, but maybe your brother's kids do, you can use it for your brother's kids to go to college. And then Coverdale's, that you can use earlier on. That is a little bit more specifically for that child. Now, retirement. And I will recommend, if you are just getting into investing, you need to start with a retirement investing before you start with education. Typically, when we need those funds for education, whether it's for ourselves or whether it's for our children, we are still working. We still have income coming in. But when we retire, the whole purpose of retirement is not to have income anymore. So if we don't want to have income anymore, then we need to have some other funds coming in. So if you start funding your education and you don't fund the retirement right away, you might run a little bit short when you get to that stage when you want to stop working. So where do you start for retirement? Well, I recommend, first of all, start with your employer. If your employer offers a 401k or a 429 or a 403b, some kind of retirement account with your office, they are typically going to have matching funds to go with it. So that's like an automatic interest right there. So, sorry, I have this really bad tickle on my nose. So, say you put $1,000 aside in your 401k, and they're going to do a 5% match. You've already earned a guaranteed 5%. And if you leave that in over the long term and take advantage of that 10% rate of return that you're going to get from the stock market, you're actually making 15% on that $1,000. And that's a great investment. So start with your employer first and start with that employer matching fund. Now, after you have your 401k, or say you have your 401k and you're like, you know what, I have a little bit left over, I can invest somewhere else. Or maybe you want to invest someplace else. Maybe your employer has very restricted ways that you can invest, and you want to invest in some funds that are Catholic, that are a little bit more geared towards our faith values and the guidelines set out by the USCCB. Then that's where you can go into something called an investment retirement account. It's an IRA, and it is specifically for retirement. Now, there's two types of IRAs, and there's also two types of 401ks, and this is traditional and Roth. A traditional IRA or traditional 401k, this is going to be where you put pre-tax money aside for the future. So you make $10,000, you put $100 away. That $100 gets deducted from your income when you report it to the IRS. Then when you pull the funds out, you will pay taxes on that. So a traditional IRA is pre-tax money going in. You pay taxes when you pull it out. And the other kind is a Roth. And a Roth IRA or Roth 401k, you're going to pay the taxes today. And when you pull it out in the future, you are not going to have to pay taxes on it. So all those earnings are going to be tax-free. So the 401k and the IRA pre-tax, you've never paid taxes on it. When you pull it out, you've got to pay your taxes. And Roth, you're paying taxes today. And when you pull it out, you don't pay any taxes. Now, there's a lot of differences between the traditional IRA as far as when you have to pull it out, how much you have to pull out, and all of that. And we're not going to go into all of those. All of those will kick in. I will say the traditional IRA, you do have to start making withdrawals from that at a certain point because you haven't paid taxes on it. And the IRS is like, come on, you got all this tax-free money growing. So at a certain point, you are going to have to start pulling funds out. A Roth, on the other hand, you never have to pull out, and you can just leave that and give that as an inheritance to your heirs. So the needs and which one you choose is going to be based on your needs, and some of it's going to be based on your circumstances. Roths have an income limit, so at a certain point, you are not able to invest in that IRA Roth anymore. If you make too much money, you cannot invest in it. However, you still can invest in your traditional IRA. Now, again, there's a lot of these little tax laws back and forth, but any money that you pay into your traditional IRA that you put money in there that you have paid taxes on today, it's called basis. And when you do pull them out, you get to subtract that. So you put $100 in today and you pay taxes on that 100 and it becomes worth 200. Well, when you pull it out in the future at 200, then you only have to pay taxes on that 100 you have not paid taxes on yet. So don't worry, you're only going to pay taxes on the funds once, barring any IRS changes. So you're going to either pay on traditional, you're going to pay it on it when you pull it out, or in a Roth, you're going to pay it when you get in. And then there's also single and joint registered accounts. Now, these are generally recommended after you have funded everything else. So fund your retirement, fund any educational needs. And if you have funds left over and you're like, okay, so I've invested into my limits with the 401k and the IRA, but and this is going to be for funds that you say, I want to pull this out before I retirement, or I may never want to pull it out at all. This would be a source. Some people put funds in this single or joint registered account when they receive an inheritance. So if you receive an inheritance that's invested and you want to keep it invested, it's either going to be a single registered account, and that means it has one person's name on it, or a joint registered account with two people or more's name on it. So if a couple, if you're married and you both have an account together, that would be a joint registered account. These funds you can pull out whenever you want. What the IRS does is every single year you pay taxes on what that account has made. So when you go to pull it out, say you invest it for 10 years and then you want to pull it out, you're going to pay taxes only on what you have not paid taxes on before. So using our nice, beautiful round numbers, you have $1,000 that you put into this account and it makes another $100. Now you have $1,100. And you want to pull everything out of that account, you're only going to pay taxes on that 100. And that's because that you've already paid taxes on that first 1,000. Now say, you have 1,000, you invested, you make 100, and then you pay taxes on that $100. The next year you make $50. So then you're going to pay taxes on that 50. So then then when you go to pull it out and say you only pull out $100, well, you've paid taxes on that already, so you won't pay taxes on it. So again, a single or a joint registered account, it's not geared towards something specific. It's not a retirement account. It's not an education account. It's just an investment account that you can use to invest and save, and it benefit in that 10% returns from the market. And every year you're going to pay taxes on the earnings. So when you pull it out, the only thing that you're going to pay taxes on is anything that you have not paid taxes on before. So that's a handy one. A good recommendation is you're saving for retirement and you think, well, I'm going to retire, but in my 70s is when I have to start pulling out of my traditional IRA. But maybe in my 60s, I want to take this nice vacation. And right now you're in your 40s and you're like, okay, I've got a little bit of money. I'm going to set it aside. And then before I actually retire, I'm going to take this money out and I'm going to take a trip on it. This would be where you're going to put that account. Now, for all of these, your education accounts, your retirement accounts, or the single or joint registered, you want to make sure that you have beneficiaries listed on there. And You have to set, usually these are, if you have a really good investment advisor that is working with you, they will help you to set these up when you do the accounts. This is very important. And the other thing that's really important is look at your beneficiaries. Your situation may change. Maybe you were single when you started this account and now you're married and you still have your best friend as who's getting these funds, or your parents or somebody else, and your spouse isn't listed. So your beneficiary on these investment accounts, they are the ones who will receive the funds. So if you set them up with one intention and by the time you pass away, that intention has changed, but you've not updated your beneficiaries, it goes by who was actually listed on the account. So make sure you do update your beneficiaries from time to time, and make sure as you need to, but just check them from time to time to make sure, yes, everything is still accurate and this is where I want it to go. A side note to those beneficiaries, make sure you check those. If you're going to check them on your investment vehicles, check them on all your accounts. Check them on your insurance, check them on your bank accounts. Check all the accounts that have beneficiaries listed to make sure all of them are accurate, up to date, and who you want to get the money. The banks, the insurance companies, the investment companies, they're going to follow your wishes as indicated on those forms. All right. So now we've talked about you need to set a goal, and that goal is going to determine whether you're going to invest in education or your retirement, or just put some money aside for a trip, a wedding, or for whatever. We've talked about risk. You need to determine what your risk is. And your risk is going to help you decide, okay, I'm going to invest in my IRA and I'm investing for the long term, but I'm a little nervous. So I'm going to be a little bit more conservative in how I invest. So we have that stuff going and we're like, okay, so now what do we do? So I will recommend get started as early as possible. You cannot, the biggest factor that will influence how much you will have in your investments is when you get started. The second biggest is going to be dollar cost averaging, which we'll talk about in a minute. And that's that steady investing. But if you start when you're 20 and then somebody else starts when they're 40, the 40-year-old will never catch up no matter how much they put in, unless they like really put in a lot of money. But it takes a lot more money to invest, even at age 30. Even 10 years makes such a difference because of compounding and how that money snowballs and grows into future earnings. So start as early as you can. Do not go into debt just to invest, because if you go into debt, now you have money that's earning interest for somebody else, which is eating away from your investment. So that's not always the best thing. So when you are ready, you're debt free and you're ready to invest, start as early as you can. A benefit of mutual funds is you don't have to have a lot of money. As long as you're going to do a monthly investment into your mutual funds, that most of them will let you start with as little as $25 a month. So it's an easy way to get started. You're diversified. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But your risk is spread across different avenues. But you can get started and you can start reaching for those goals. All right. So let's talk about diversification. So we talked about risk and being, determining how comfortable we are with those ups and downs. Well, one way you do that is is called diversification. And that's where you put your money in multiple places instead of just one. So if I buy stock in company X and company X does great, I do great. My stock is going to go up in value. If I go to trade my stock, I'm going to earn something. If company X goes out and that I have my stock X in, if they go out of business, I'm done. I've lost everything. So with diversification, it's protection. So instead of being invested just in stock X, now I might be invested in X, Y, Z, ABC, and more. Mutual funds can hold 300 companies and 300 different types of stocks. It can hold stock. It's going to hold stocks, bonds, and a little bit in cash. And so that spread amongst hundreds of companies and many bond funds is what we call diversification. And what happens is one bond fund starts doing poorly, then the person managing that mutual fund is going to pull out of that bond fund and add another one in there for you. So they are going to manage that and try to keep your fund where you want it to go. So if you want to invest in US markets and you want to invest in something, again, that's a little more conservative and a little more safe, they're going to keep you in that way. if companies that are in that mutual fund start to veer a little bit out of that, the goal of that fund, they're going to do some corrections. Now, with that management comes fees. With mutual funds, because they hold stocks in so many different companies and so many people are in that same mutual fund, your fees are going to be typically less, but you can shop around and find fees that fit your comfort level. Know what those fees are before you get started. So diversification, once you've got your goals and your risk, you want to have something that's diversified, which is a mutual fund is really good with that. And you want to look at cost. How much is this going to cost you? It's going to have fees, and some fees are inherent, and it's just part of investing. Kind of think about it. If you go with some of these lower fees or maybe no fees where nobody manages it, nobody's pulling anything out. So if there's companies, index funds are great. One problem with index funds is if there's a company in the S&P 500 that's going downhill so quickly that it cannot be pulled out of the S&P 500, you're going to hold that mutual fund until it hits bottom. But if you get a fund that's got a little bit more management, not even a lot, but just a little, then they can pull out of that company when it's doing well. They're going to pull that stock out of your portfolio. So look at the cost and get it within your comfort level. If this is something that you need to keep low, then find whether it's index funds or ETFs or something that has a lower cost to it that still matches what you want to invest in, retirement or education, and matches your risk level. Remember, you're going to be like an owner and not a lender. This is something you're going to hold on to a little bit. So think about when you're picking these mutual funds, where do they invest in? If you want to be a little more strategic, you can be a little bit more involved in, are they socially invested? There is on the USCCB website. I'll include a link for that as well. Are they invested in ways that you want them to be invested in? Are these, just making a note, are these invested so that that go along with Catholic teaching? That could be something that you're interested in. And if you're not sure, don't invest. If something sounds too good to be true, a lot of times it is. So make sure you understand, what is the cost? What are you investing in? If you want to take a risk and try something, hey, you know, try some funds that they're a little more aggressive, just make sure that you understand what the risk is and what you're investing in. And if you're not sure, don't invest in that vehicle. There's plenty of places that you can invest. There's a lot of great companies out there. You can always start with something like your bank. A lot of times banks will have somebody that can help you get started with mutual funds. You can go out to different Charles Schwab and different companies that are out there. I'm not promoting anybody. I'm just saying do your homework and pick somebody. Ask your friends. Ask your friends who they invest with. How do they like their investment advisor? But find somebody, get them to explain these things so that you know how you're investing. Decide if you want your funds to grow or if you're looking a little bit more for income, whether you want education or retirement. All right, the last thing I want to talk about is dollar cost averaging. So like I said at the beginning, the stock market has ups and downs. It's just part of the way the market goes. Wouldn't it be great if we could buy when the stock market was low and pull out when it was high? Well, it sounds really good. And some people do try to time the market in that way. It's really hard for most of us to do that. So dollar cost averaging helps to balance out the difficulty in timing the market and still allows you to take advantage of those swings. Basically, dollar cost averaging is where you say, okay, I have $25 and I'm going to invest $25 every month. It comes out on the same day of the month, no matter what's going on in the market, whether it's a high day or a low day, that money's going into your investment. And so over time, you're going to take advantage of the times when it's low, and you're also going to take advantage of the times when it's high. So when a stock market is low, that means that you are going to be able to buy more shares. So the share price is going to go down. So now your $25 is going to buy more shares. When the stock market is high, the share prices are more expensive and you're not going to be able to buy as much. Say when the stock market is high, you can only buy one mutual fund. I'm making simple math here, for your $25. And when it's low, you can buy 2 shares of mutual funds. And over time, it's going to equal out. So dollar cost averaging, whether you're saving, the best way to save, it's kind of like, think about like your automatic savings where you're just going to put $20 away every month. And then next thing you know, you've got $1,000. This is kind of the way it works with investments. So you're going to put that money aside every month, invest in it, and not worry about whether it's a high day or a low day for the market, or man, wish it had gone in the day earlier or the day after. Just put it in, and over time, you will take advantage of the ups and downs in the market, and you will get that rate of return. We can't guarantee, and there is no guarantee in the stock market. There's no guarantee that you are going to make that 10% return. There's also no guarantee you're only going to make that 10% return. Depending on how aggressively you invest, depending on the type of investment, depending on the timing of it, sometimes your stock markets are sometimes your returns may be closer to 7 or 8%, and sometimes you could be at 12 and 15%. Some funds there for a while were earning like 20 and 25%, not for a whole big time, but it would have a great swing and then it would swing back down. That's okay. Your average is going to be 10. I will say the more conservatively you invest, you will get a little bit lower return typically, but that's, again, it's okay. You're still going to earn more than you're going to earn in a bank account. You're still going to have those funds for retirement or education or whatever your need is, and they're going to grow for you. All right. Wow. I feel like I just threw a ton of information on you. So feel free and go ahead and add in the comments. We will monitor this. If you have questions, if you're like, I didn't get what you said about this, just add it in the comments, and we will be, all of our coaches, they do monitor our Facebook page. We will help you and try to explain it. It's kind of hard to keep broad level and talk about a lot of different areas in just a little half an hour spell, which is kind of why I'm going over a little bit. But it's just a lot of information. Just want to touch on a lot of stuff and just let you know there's a lot of things out there. The biggest thing is starting early so that you can take advantage of compounding. Make sure you're ready. I guess I should start with that. Make sure you're ready. Start as early as you can. Decide how much you can invest. Figure out your risk tolerance and that goal so that you know where investment options you should choose, and then pick a strategy. Pick that strategy for how you're going to invest and where you're going to go, and make sure you understand the cost that's involved. There are lots of opportunities out there based on where your goal is, whether it's for retirement or education, or just, an inheritance you want to put some money in, or some money that you want to put in that doesn't have these restrictions. There's a lot of options. So it can seem like a scary world. But talk with somebody, an investment advisor who can kind of help explain these. Investment advisors, even if you're not going to use them, you can also book appointments and just say, hey, listen, I just need a consultation. I just need to know, I want to invest in retirement. And can you just give me a consultation to kind of help me figure out where I should go? So that might be something worth it, just to give you that peace of mind, to know that where you're putting your funds is exactly where you want them to go. Start with your employee matching for retirement. If they have it, that's a great place to start, because you're going to get an automatic extra bonus there where you put money in and they're going to put money in there to match it. And the market, and I guess if there's one more thing, gosh, I keep saying that. So one more thing, and this is the last thing. I'll borrow Father Mike's term, and this is the last thing. The market goes up and the market goes down. Check your risk tolerance. See that you have a comfort level for how you're investing. If you invest and you get scared and you pull it all out when it's low, then yeah, you might lose. You might pull it out and you might be at the same level, but you also might lose money. You only lose money in the stock market when you pull the money out. If I invest $100 today and tomorrow it's only worth $50, I haven't lost anything. It's still invested. And as long as it's invested, there's a chance that fund is going to go up. If I think the fund is going to go up, it's in my best bet to keep it invested and wait for that to go up. Investing in stocks is a lot more risky, but investing in mutual funds, you've got a manager that's watching those funds, and they're going to rearrange, and it could just be everybody in the market is down. Give us some time. Investing in the market is a long range, a long time horizon investment. It's you need to put funds in there that you're going to need in there for a while. If you lose $50 a day after you invest it, it's okay. You're going to at least go back up to 100, and you're probably going to rebound more than that. So just give it some time. Check that risk tolerance to make sure that you're going to be comfortable with some of those ups and downs. You're not losing money unless you actually pull it out. So find an investment advisor who can work with you and answer some of those questions and get you started with investing. Thank you so much for watching. I pray and I ask God, please bless everybody that was watching us. Please bless everybody that watches this later on. And please help us, God. This can be a very difficult thing to figure out. But I pray that all of our viewers who are seeking to invest, that you help and guide them and help gear them to where they need to be to reach their goals. Because you can do that, God, because you are that mighty and that wonderful, and you love us that much. And I thank you for this time, and I pray blessings upon everybody watching. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I know it's a lot. I appreciate you bearing with me. Ask any questions you have down in the comments, and you will see a link in the comments for the USCCB guidelines, as well as for a risk tolerance. Thank you so much, and I pray you all have a great rest of your evening. God bless.